love. I was scrolling through Pinterest the other day and I came across this picture of Paris Hilton and I was like instantly obsessed with the silhouette of the top she's wearing. I mean, the whole outfit in general is chef's kiss, obviously, but something about the top, I don't know, I just loved it so much. So I thought, why don't I crochet one? But instead of making it like a plain pink, I'll put my own little spin on it, as I tend to do. Now, if you didn't already know, I own a crochet bikini brand called ixora Swim. I design and hand make every single piece myself. And this bikini I designed a little while ago was this like butter yellow fluffy yarn crocheted into this warm chocolate brown yarn. I mean, I'm wearing it right now, as you can see. I love the detail. I think it's so unique. It adds so much personality to an otherwise pretty boring crochet top. And I knew immediately that that's what I wanted to do for this wrap top. So I'm going to teach you that technique in this video. The yarn that I used for my top specifically is yarn that I bought in bulk for my business, but I will find some similar types of yarn and I'll link them in the description below. The cotton is just lace weight, 100% cotton, and the fluffy yarn, I've got no fucking clue what that is. I'm assuming it's like a polyester. It's that. It's like that. I hope that helps. Honestly, I think any kind of like fuzzy, fluffy yarn would work completely fine. If it's cheap and fluffy, I think it'll be perfect for this top. It is such a cute way to use up like an otherwise pretty ugly yarn. Like, what else are you going to be doing with this? For the cotton, I do end up doubling and sometimes quadrupling the ply, so using up to 4 balls of it at once. But you do not need to go out and buy fucking 4 balls of the same kind of cotton. I'll show you later in the video how you can try and make this top using just the 1 ball of yarn, okay? If you're a baddie on a budget, I got you. I've got you. Let's travel back in time and start making this top together. Spoiler alert, it's cute as fuck. Who's ready to make some bullshit up? If anything, my videos are a journey on how to freehand and make it work for you. There is not going to be a one-size-fits-all approach with this top. It's going to take a little bit of trial and error, I think, which is okay. And it's going to be a slightly different approach for everybody. But that's okay. I'm going to walk you through it, hun. It's going to be okay. I'm taking my 2 threads of lace weight cotton yarn in this gorgeous warm brown color, and I'm going to use my 4mm hook. And I'm going to start from like the boob bit, the triangle bit, and work upwards, and I'll finish with the end of the strap. So I'm going to start by making a chain for this section here. Now for me, it's going to be quite a short chain, okay? Little Miss A Cup is not going to be needing that big of a chain. But of course, how the fuck have I got this in a fucking knot already, cunt? Are you being serious? Oh my God. Of course, make your chain however big you need it to be. Mine will be quite short. Let's see. I'll start a chain. 1, 2, 3. Using like a pretty loose tension, kind of just like a normal tension. That looks so fucking small. I could make that work, but it's a little bit too small. I'm gonna keep in mind that this will be bunched up on a tie, so it's probably not gonna be fully like stretched out to its full length at all times. So I'll make it a little bit longer to allow like a bit of wiggle room for that. 19, 20. I think this is probably perfect for me. So my starter chain is 20. It could be a starter chain of 70 and we'll still be able to make it work. Now I'm just going to double crochet back over my starter chain, and I'm going to count as I go back over it just to double check that I've actually counted correctly. This is perfect. Happy with that. Okay, now this is where my baby bird yarn comes in. No, baby bird. What's his name? Big bird. Big bird. Big boobs. Hey, matches the pants. Whoa. All I'm doing to incorporate the fluffy yarn into my crochet is I'm just holding it in place and crocheting as normal over the top of it. This is my first row of double crochets, and I'm gonna do another row in the exact same amount of stitches, so another row of 20. And what I'll do is grab the fluffy yarn, leaving like a fair chunk of a tail on the end. I would rather have too much of a tail than not enough to tie in later. So this may seem a little bit excessive, but I would rather that. And I'm gonna flip my row of double crochets around, ready to work back over it. I'm gonna leave this tail end on this side so that the length of the yarn that I'm working with is running back this way in the direction that I'm crocheting. I'm placing my fluffy yarn just there. So it's literally just like running in between where I'm about to make that stitch. I work a double crochet right into my first stitch. I don't chain and then crochet it in. I literally just do a double crochet into my edges because I think it makes them straighter. So I'm doing my double crochet over that bit of fluffy yarn Oops. And now it's secured in there. So another double crochet into my second stitch. Now doing my third. And that's literally it. You do want to be mindful that this fluffy yarn isn't, you know, too loose, because if it is, you'll have like shit hanging out everywhere. And this isn't what we want, hun. We want it to be pulled nice and taut, but not so tightly that it's going to skew your work. So just like, you know, a happy in between. Honestly, it's almost as if we're making a little crochet cage for this fluffy yarn. I'm going to keep working along. I'll finish this second row of 20 and then we'll have a look at how it's looking. This is what it should be looking like. Really happy with this fit. This is going to be perfect for me. So from here, we're going to be turning this into a triangle, right? Which means, of course, we'll be doing some decreasing. Now, your approach to this will totally depend on the size of your yiddies. Obviously mine are small, so I'm gonna need a much smaller triangle. I think I'll try decreasing every second row. So, you know, doing 20, 20, 18, 18, 16, 16, so on and so forth, until it gets up a little bit higher and I'll be crocheting the same amount of stitches for the band bit. But I would imagine that if you're making a bigger size, you might find that you need 3 rows of each amount of stitches before decreasing to get the right coverage. So doing 20, 20, 20, 18, 18, 18, 16, 16, 16. You could even do 4 rows. It'll be different depending on your preference, how you want it to fit, yada, yada, yada. So fuck around with it. There's nothing wrong with trying some shit out, realizing that's not it, undoing it, and trying again. I'm gonna try decreasing every second row, and I'll do that for a few rows and see how I feel. To decrease, I'm just gonna flip my work around, still holding this fluffy yarn in place. I'm gonna yarn over, push through that first stitch, still with my fluffy yarn just being held in place there. Yarn over, pull through, push through the second stitch, yarn over, pull through. So I have 4 loops on my hook. I'm yarning over, pulling through the first 3 loops on the hook, yarning over, pulling through the last 2. And that's my decrease. Something to be mindful of is that your fluffy yarn is nice and flush against this edge here. You don't want your yarn to be like fucking all the way out here, because what fucking good is that? So as you're working along, just making sure that it's running nice and tightly along this edge. Not too tight, of course. Just like that is perfect. So now I'm just gonna double crochet along this row as normal. This will be my first row of 18. I'm at the end of my row and there's 2 stitches left here. So I'm gonna yarn over, push through that first one, yarn over, pull through, push through that second one, yarn over, pull through, 4 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through the first 3, yarn over, pull through the last 2. So that equates to 1 decrease. This one equates to 1 decrease, which means I've decreased by 2. Oh, it's so good. I'm obsessed with this color combo. How cute. By far the biggest pro to having tiny, tiny titties is that this took me about 2 seconds. We have to look at the positives. I'm happy with how this is fitting so far. It's kind of perfect, actually. I've decreased every second row and I've just finished 2 rows of 14. I'm honestly getting pretty close to reaching the number of stitches that I'll be crocheting for the rest of the top to do the band bit. It's still a little bit too wide to move on to the band section. I do need to decrease a little bit more. Let me decrease one more time, do another row on top of that in the same amount of stitches, and then we'll see how we feel. So I've just done 2 rows of 12 now. I reckon this is how wide I want my straps going around. I don't want the straps to be super skinny. I think it would look weird if they were, for me personally. I would rather them have a bit of thickness to them. I'm gonna start making my strap now. So I'll just be doing rows and rows and rows and rows and rows of 12. And for me, it's kind of at the perfect point. Like I'm happy that my strap is starting around this point. But if you're making a bigger cup size, you may have reached the height that you're wanting to start your strap, but the width is too wide. And we need to work out how we can get your work a little bit skinnier to make sure that the strap is at a width that you're happy with. What I would suggest is doing a few rows of decreasing every row instead of every second row so that it thins out sooner. You could even do double decreases on the end of each row for a few rows, which is exactly how it sounds. You start with 1 decrease, just like normal, and then you do another decrease straight away afterwards. So you'd be decreasing by 2 stitches here, 2 stitches here, and that's going to get you a thinner strap quicker. Again, it may be one of those things where you just fuck around with it and see what works for you. So keep all that in mind, okay? If you're looking at your cup and it's quite wide and you're thinking, how the fuck am I going to turn that into like a strap that's half the size? You have options. Try a few different ways of decreasing and see what works. I'm going to try crocheting a few more rows of 12. I'm not going to be decreasing anymore, and it'll give me a bit of a better picture as to whether or not that is the width that I'm happy with. If not, I'll just frog it and do a little bit more decreasing. Yeah, that's the perfect width. If we can use our imaginations for a second, this is kind of what it'll look like running along the bod. And you know, I am just keeping in mind that it probably won't ever be sitting completely flat. It'll be like slightly scrunched up, folded in, whatever, as tops do when you're wearing them. So this is perfect. I'm gonna keep crocheting rows of 12. It's gonna take me a while because it's gonna be going up here, fucking round here, fucking over here, and enough at the back to tie it in a knot. I still reckon it's doable in a weekend. 134 rows. That's how long my top is. And I've got 2 of them. Still got it done in a weekend. It really didn't take that long. They're very short rows. I have all my rows of crochet done. It really starts to come together once you've done a fair bit of it. Let me show you where we're at. This is gonna go around, oh God. Oh God. And then around, and then it'll tie down here at the back. So I've left enough length here to be able to tie it in a little knot with the other half of the top. And this is where we're at. I'm getting so excited about it. Oh my God. Let's cut the fluffy yarn, tie it off, sew in the ends so that we can put a border around this top. I've got nail glue on my hand that won't come off. Just ignore it, okay? I'm not gonna cut my cotton because I'm gonna continue using that to do my border. So at this point, all I'm doing is cutting off and tying in the fluffy yarn. I'm gonna leave a fair bit to work with, and I'm just gonna warn you right now, the way that I am about to tie off this fluffy yarn is completely unprofessional, but this is how I'm gonna do it because it's just a top for me and I don't really give a fuck. It's honestly a little bit tricky to figure out like what is the right way to tie something like this off and sew it in. There's honestly probably no right way. It's just whatever works for you. And this is what I've decided to do this time. I'm gonna sew it in along this edge here. However, I do think you could probably sew it in along this top edge here. This is just how I'm doing it. Please don't roast me about it, okay? I'm using a needle that's got a bit of a thicker eye for this yarn to fit through. Normally, I hate these plastic needles, but they do come in handy for something like this. I'm gonna sew it in underneath the loop of fluffy yarn below it. So I'm sewing it in underneath that loop, and then I'm sewing it back in and creating a little loop here that I will tie a knot with. I never really trust that one knot is enough. I always feel like I need to do 2 or 3 for some reason, which probably is completely unnecessary, but this is who I am and I'm not changing it. Okay, I'm gonna do the same thing in to the next row of fluffy yarn, working into that next loop underneath it, sewing it in. I'm going to sew into the loop that I just created and then push my yarn through and tie another knot. So that's a second knot, and I'm doing a third one just to be safe. I'm going to snip this and then I'll work over this with my border. I'm taking my same hook, my 4mm hook, and I'm just going to start working where I finished my last double crochet. In between these 2 stitches here will be my first corner for my border, and each corner of my border is going to be made up of 3 stitches. So I'm going to do my first 2. I believe these are single crochets. I don't really know. I'm not 100%. I don't really know like the correct terms, but I'm shoving my hook in, yarning over, pulling through, and then yarning over, pulling through the 2 loops on the hook. So that's 2 stitches I've just worked into this corner here. And when I work my way all the way around and join back up here, I'll work my 3rd stitch into this corner. Now it's a little bit tricky to see along this edge with this extra yarn that I've sewn in along here, the fluffy yarn. I'm gonna work 2 of these same border stitches into every row of double crochet. And I like to work into this little gap here in the stitches, as you can see there. I like to work into that gap. So I'll do 1, 2. So that's 2 stitches in this 1 row of double crochet here. And I'm making sure that I'm covering that fluffy yarn that I've sewn into the edge. And then I'm working my next 2 stitches into the next row of double crochet here. So 1, 2. My next 2 border stitches will be worked into this gap here. So 1, 2, and then the next 2 worked into this row of double crochet here. 1, 2. Now you can see that the border is mostly covering this fluffy yarn. It's not 100% perfect. There are bits sticking out, which obviously won't continue all the way down the top, but that doesn't really bother me, to be completely honest. She is a little bit of a mess, but she's handmade. I don't expect her to be completely perfect. I've worked my border all along this edge. I'm at the bottom of my cup where I started my project. And before I crochet into this edge here, I'm just gonna sew in and tie off these ends of yarn. So my cotton yarn, I will sew in along the very bottom edge. And then the fluffy yarn, I'll do the same as I did before, sewing into this edge here. Okay, so back to the border. Because we're at a corner, I'm gonna work 3 stitches in between these 2 double crochets here. So 1, 2, 3. And for this edge here, I'm gonna work 1 stitch in between each double crochet. So working into the gaps in the stitches, just like that. Now I'm at my next corner. I'm gonna do another 3 stitches in between these double crochets, 2, 3. And now, of course, it's time for me to work back up this other side. I've worked along this second long side of my top. We just have this last little bit at the top here, and then we're done. Fucking chee-hoo. I'm working 3 stitches in between these 2 double crochets here, and then the same as that other bottom edge, I'm gonna work just 1 stitch in between, whoops, each of these double crochets. Now we're at the point where I started this border. Because I did 2 stitches into this corner already, that means I just have 1 more stitch to do. So doing my stitch as normal, and then I'm gonna shove my hook into that very first border stitch that I did, yarn over, pull through, and then pull that through that last loop on the hook. And my border is completely joined up. Snip this, fucking see ya. I'll tie this off, sew these ends in, and then we'll make the tie to go into the cup. I look a little bit crazy right now. Don't care. Okay, for my tie, my chest tie, like the back tie, is literally just gonna be a chain, a starter chain. That's how I like mine. I don't like doing too much for a tie. Okay, so I'm gonna work with 4 balls of my brown cotton because I just like it a little bit thicker. I find that if I work with 2 balls like I did for the rest of the top, it's just like a bit thin and looks kind of ratty. I don't know. I think making it a little bit thicker makes it feel a little bit more luxe. I also much prefer how the cup sits on a thicker tie. If the tie is too thin, I find that the cup will like bunch up and slide around more than I want it to. A thicker tie will kind of hold the cups in place where I want them to sit. But of course, it's personal preference. If you want a thin tie, go fucking crazy. Let's match up the ends of this yarn. Still working with my 4mm hook. I'm leaving a fair bit of a tail on the end because I'll be popping tassels on the ends of my tie, and these ends will be part of the tassel. And I'm just gonna make a chain. Oh my God, my nails match the yarn and the hook. That was totally not on purpose, but that is so satisfying. Love. I have made enough bikini ties to know that for me personally, I like mine to be 140 centimeters long. Of course, make it however fucking big you want it to be. There is no right or wrong, and I believe in you at the end of the day. Just a little tip, if you don't happen to have 4 balls of the exact same color of cotton sitting around, what you can do is grab a, I don't know, spare like roll. Sometimes I use toilet rolls. Honestly, I will wrap bits of yarn around like a toilet roll just to have something to put it on. But grab one of your balls that you do have, you know, wind a bit of yarn onto some spare bit of shit that you got sitting around and do that instead of going out and buying an extra fucking ball that you'll just have sitting around doing nothing afterwards. Let's see how we're going lengthwise. 2 more. I reckon 2 or 3 more chains and it'll be at 140. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Leaving a nice fair chunk of yarn on this end as well because there'll be a tassel there. Cutting all this off. Pulling these through, and there's my tie. We'll sew these in before we attach any tassels. Where the fuck is a needle? Before I sew my tie into my cups, I'm just gonna make sure that both pieces of my crochet are facing the right way. It's a very small detail, but it matters. I don't know if you can tell, but this side of crochet here is front facing. This is the right way around. And this one here is backwards. You can tell by the border, mostly. The back of the border stitches just look a little bit sort of gappy. I don't know. So we'll flip this one around so that they're both facing the front. I'm going to take my chain and just thread it into a yarn needle. This is totally personal preference. This is like not an important step at all, but I want my tie to be running over the top of these end stitches here. So I'm going to sew over the top of it. And then I'll try working in and out of every second stitch and see if that matches up on the end. Yes, it will. Okay. See, the needle's coming out this way, which means my tie will run over that stitch, just like I wanted it to. This is the front and this is the back. It's perfect. Now to do the exact same thing with this second cup. My border is facing the right way. I'm working over the top of this edge here, sewing into that corner, gathering every second double crochet, pulling all this through, and that's the tie attached. Now all we have to do is tassels. Oh my God, it's looking so cute. To make my tassels, I'm using a toilet roll. Quilton, sponsor the channel. For the love of God, please. I'm gonna work with 2 rolls of cotton. It makes things a little bit more sturdy and it saves time too. So that's what I'm doing. I'm gonna grab the end of my tie and separate this cotton into 2. So that's split in half and I'll just tighten that. We'll lay it down with the strands separated. I'm gonna take my toilet roll and lay my cotton flat over the top with a little bit of overhang. And I'm just gonna wrap this around a few times to make like the body of the tassel. You can choose how many times you want it wrapped around depending on how thick or thin you want your tassel. I like mine wrapped around 10 times, which I guess is technically 20. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm gonna snip this with a little bit of overhang as well. I'm just gonna like shimmy this off the toilet roll. I haven't wrapped my cotton around too tightly because if I did, it would make this bit really tricky. And I'm just gonna hold onto the center point at the top of my tassel. I'm gonna place that center point in between the very middle of the ties that I've separated. I'm gonna pull these ties through. And now we're just gonna tie some knots. So we'll go 1 knot this way, tighten that, and then we'll go 1 knot going in the other direction so that it's nice and secure. I'm grabbing my 2 strands of cotton from the balls again, and I'm gonna lay them flat, making sure that there's enough cotton here to wrap around my tassel a few times. Just gonna like pop my tassel in the middle there and tie a knot. And then do another knot going the other way so that that's nice and secure. I'm just gonna kind of like keep this end of the cotton that I'm working with sticking out so that I can find it again in a second and it doesn't all blend in with the rest of my tassel. And I'm gonna wrap the cotton that's attached to the balls around my tassel like 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And then link it back up with the cotton that I had sticking out. Tying one last double knot with these bits of cotton here. Bitch, say cotton one more time. What the hell? Oh my God. We get it. It's cotton. This is one of my worst tassels. I'm not 100% happy with how she's come out, but let that be a lesson to you all. Not everything needs to be perfect all the time. There we go. That's how we do a tassel. I have no notes, ladies. I've got no notes. What do we think? It's cute, right? Is this going to be everybody's cup of tea? No. No, it won't. Like, are you going to be wearing this down to the fucking Sunday market? Probs not. But do you know what I reckon this top would be sick for? Is something like a bush doof, a festival of some sort, Coachella. As like a little special occasion top, I think it's so worth it, especially considering the fact that this cost a couple of bucks to make and you can do it in like a weekend. I think you should make it. Let's twin. I want to twin. If someone makes this, please tag me on Instagram or TikTok at ixora atelier. I want to see. I'm so desperate to see, please. I know someone's going to absolutely eat this up. I will be watching and I will be waiting.